Italy, lay in the area. Third generation revolutionary clan, inviting people, telling stories, finding her, making poems too. Inspire, inspire, this is dkLa. This is dkLa. Today we are with Grace Wong. Hi, Grace. How are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm doing all right today. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, let's start our episode. Who are you, and where can your listeners connect with you online?
Who am I? That's a really broad question. I am a husband. I'm a father. I live right outside Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S., and I'm an executive coach. So I have my own business, and I'm a licensed therapist as well. And people can connect with me mainly on LinkedIn. That's really where I'm really found. You can find me at Chris Wong LMHC, and yeah, I have Instagram, but I don't really know how to use it, so nobody
Okay.
can connect with me there yet.
And what inspires you to do what you do or keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I do. I got into therapy, so I'll talk about both sides. I got into therapy because people always ask me like, why do I like therapy or why do I become a therapist? Is it's because I just love how the brain works. I think it's so interesting
Mhm.
how our experiences, the way we were raised, our cultures, it really impacts the way our brains form. And then I always think of it as a puzzle, like trying to figure out why people do the things they do. And then the executive coaching, I love it just because I like making an impact in the world, as big an impact as possible. So I love helping leaders create cultures and have these conversations with their employees that they need to have so that they can create a really unified culture and have the impact that they want to have. And so I like seeing that transformation and growth in leaders.
Oh, that's great. I think it's really good to make an investment for everyone in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I do therapy for almost 4 years,
That's great.
and uh, well, before doing therapy, I think it was really I had the same vision many people have has that mental health professionals are just for crazy people, and it's
Yeah.
not true. Everyone needs.
That's right. And when I first got into therapy, my first population I was working with was sex offenders, adolescent sex offenders, who
Mhm.
had also had complex and developmental trauma. And it's not a population that people like to work with generally, because people like to work with the survivors or the victims, and it's a lot harder to work with the people committing harm to others, and but they also need help. They need care and support, and they also have the potential to grow and get better too. They just need that support and help as well.
Oh, that's great to hear. And now let's go to our theme. You chose the theme, the tradition breaker, and in this theme, I wanted to show to my listeners
Mm.
uh, the importance of breaking some traditions. And of course, we can't break all our traditions, but some of them it's important to even to make a more meaningful life,
Mm.
and who knows, create more and more new traditions. Well, your career trajectory, the little part you told us, demonstrates a willingness to break away from
Mm.
traditional roles and approaches,
Mm.
particularly in the non-profit sector.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you see the concept of the tradition breaker manifesting your work with non-profit leaders, especially regarding strategic prioritization and fostering high performing culture.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I've always hated the phrase Tawadi. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's the way we've always done it. And I think a lot of people rely on tradition to do things instead of
Mm-hmm,
actually thinking through why they're doing it or being willing to change the rules in a way.
mm-hmm,
You know, I grew up the child of immigrants and refugees, and so I grew up in a mostly white area. So I was always kind of on the outside of multiple cultures, and so I've
mm-hmm.
always had to get used to questioning why is a rule this way? Why do we do things this way or that way? And so I approach the work the same way because there's so many people that have done it for such a long time. It's easy to get into that habit, and it's a lot harder to start thinking, well, why do we do things this way? Why are we continuing to pursue this work? Or why do we make this a priority in our strategy? Why do we create a strategic plan the way we've always done it? Even the idea of creating a strategic plan and priorities, it's based on a lot of tradition. And it takes courage really to say, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to invite voices in that typically aren't in there. And so I think it's an ongoing discussion and battle, but I think it's necessary, and that's why I love even the DEI work. That's forcing companies to really rethink the way they who they include in these discussions and conversations, who they feel like they're helping, because it's necessary conversations to have.
Oh, well, yeah, I think traditions really have this power on creating strategies.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not American. I'm Brazilian.
Yeah, yeah,
Mostly of my invitees are Americans. It's really interesting
hmm.
because both countries are multicultural,
Yeah,
and I come from a mixed family. I have many mixed traditions.
hmm.
So, in a certain moment of my life, I thought, well, why just following one side of the family and
Hmm.
one kind of tradition? Why not opening my horizons? And in the middle of all this uh, storm, I decided to be an entrepreneur,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it's really it's really hard to hear some comments, but well, I really enjoy the feeling of making my own reality, especially in the parts of art and
Hmm.
graphic design,
Hmm.
and also entertainment, because the podcast is also part of a business.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really good sensation.
That's so then how did you have that conversation with your all of the different traditions of your family to say I'm going to do this new direction?
Uh, um, well, it was one of the toughest conversations I had. I just told them, oh, I think I can't follow the paths you chose to me.
Hmm.
There are many few paths to follow, and I don't like none of them.
Yeah.
I don't. I want to create mine, and well, the first thing they said is, "You're crazy. You don't like to work," or well, they say, oh, many stuff, but I think I work harder
mm.
than many people who follow 9 to 5, and uh, it took uh, much time uh, to have some results,
Mm.
to see the
Yeah.
first results appear.
Yeah.
But I'm really
Yeah, that sounds so
so,
familiar. Like my parents had the same when I said I was going to start my own business, they had the same questions like, "Are you sure?" Like I will say though, I think because I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40 and I've had like a bunch of jobs and I've had a career already. So I think they were less stressed about it than if I was younger and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna instead of working full time, I'm just gonna start my own business. I think they would have been much more concerned if I didn't already have like a career and some exhibited kind of competency and some kind of skill set.
I'm 35 years old. I'm
So
not
yeah, so same age range, I would say. Yeah,
we're from the same generation.
yeah, for sure.
Well, conflict resolution, let's
Hmm.
talk about it. It's a really common issue faced by leaders in nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies or techniques do you employ to help leaders confidently navigate difficult conversations? We
Mm.
talked about it a lot, and
Yeah.
resolve conflicts effectively.
Yeah, the first thing I the thing I do the most, I think, is helping them reframe their mindset about what conflict or difficult conversations are like. Because I find that in the work that I've done is so many nonprofit leaders get into the work because they care about people. They really want to help, and so they end up less willing to hold people accountable or be more assertive in that sense, whether they're for personality or just the way they've been the culture of the organization. So the first thing is just getting comfortable with holding people accountable, and being assertive is not the same as being aggressive or being mean to them. It's a necessary part of being kind and being empathic, is you want the other people to grow and you don't want them to keep doing inappropriate behaviors. So you this is an important part of it. And then there are some people, there's certainly a subsect of people who are maybe a little too harsh and they need softening their edges in terms of how they have the conversation, and realizing that being soft or being empathic and being respectful is not the same as being too soft and being a pushover. So I've seen the extremes, and so first is reframing that mindset and letting them realize it's important to have this conversation. And then the next thing is teaching them how to have the conversation. So how do you guide the conversation and have a respectful tone throughout it? How do you guide it in a way that the other person feels heard? And there's a lot of times there's a power dynamic. So how do you reduce that power dynamic to make it seem equal in the conversation? Whether they're above or below you, it doesn't really matter. Is you want them to feel equal in the conversation. And then from there, it's just exploring the other person's needs, interests, what they're motivated by, so that you can address yourself in a way that meets their needs. Because I think I was listening to a podcast interview yesterday, and the guest was
Mhm.
saying the best way to get your own needs met is to meet the other person's needs, which I found really incredible. It was a really much more elegant way of saying everything I want to say, but it's really about how do you help them feel comfortable, how do you help them meet their needs, and how do you reframe it so that it's not you against the other person. Even in a conflict, it's how do you solve this problem together so that you're on the same side.
Oh, it's really important. I think not only in for leaders, but in life
Yeah.
to find the ideal tone. I I have many contacts with younger people. I
Hmm.
mean, not only children, but also younger adults.
Hmm.
And I know it's something that comes with time,
Hmm.
experience. But it's necessary. It's necessary to make the first step if we want to be moderate people, and if we want to well deal with difficult conversations. Not all conversations will be easy to have,
Hmm.
both in in life, in personal life, and all. But even in non-profit sector,
Hmm.
I'm a volunteer, and
Hmm.
well, volunteering is beautiful,
Yeah.
but there is also the hard part, the tough conversation.
Hmm.
Sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's too much. It's too demanding,
Hmm.
and we must know learn how to do these conversations. Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I think managing volunteers is hard too, just because they don't get paid. And so, how do you get them to continue to provide? their time and effort, which is so valuable.
Oh, for sure. Well, and um, let me see. Change management
Hmm.
is inherently about challenging the status quo
Yeah.
and leading organizations through transformation. How do you assist nonprofit executives in embracing change as an opportunity for growth and innovation rather than fearing it as a disruption to tradition?
The interesting thought is whenever I'm working with somebody, they've already agreed that the change needs to happen. It's they need my help to get everybody else on board.
Mhm,
And the analogy I've always heard is, imagine you're on a bridge, right? And you're already on the other side of the bridge, but everybody else in the organization is on the beginning of the bridge. So you can see the outcome, you can see what's happening, but nobody else can,
mhm,
and that's why it's so hard because nobody else can see the same thing you're looking at. And so it's it's being willing to look at every single person in your organization and seeing who is going to be easy to persuade, who's like already like thinking like me, they are willing to break tradition or look at the future. Who's going to be, they're going to be lukewarm, they'll need to see some evidence, but they'll be on board once more people are on board. And who are the people that are like, absolutely never, I will never change, nothing will ever convince me. And it's really starting with the people who are those early adopters, those people who are willing to make changes and saying, let's build this coalition of the willing, let's build this alliance of people who are willing to, who see the vision, believe in it also, and are willing to work with everybody else, and who of them are influential across the organization. Because I think you'll find that there are people at all levels like that are willing to go to the future, and they have that influence, they are able to speak to everybody else around them and bring along some of those other people. And so the main takeaway is it's relationships. At the end of the day, it's having good relationships and being able to work with people one on one, speak to their motivations, understand who they are as people, and understand what it is about change that they may not like. Do they really benefit from the current system a lot? That's always a big thing. If they stand to lose any power or perceived power, they might be more
mhm.
resistant to that change. And so it's really aligning that and showing some of the opportunities that could be possible. And sometimes people just need evidence, so sometimes they'll need to see the change, see the evidence that there is a brighter future, and then they'll slowly come around. But it's really working
Uh,
with who can see it, even abstractly at the beginning.
you said something. I really remembered the first therapist I had. He told me I wanted to do a professional change when I started doing the therapy,
Hmm.
and well, I thought it would be something about my professional choices, and then I don't know, 2 or 3 sessions later, he started asking me about my family,
Hmm.
and then we talked all year long about my relationship, about my parents,
Hmm.
my sister, and even my love life. So yeah, it, I agree with you. In the end, at the end of the day, it's all about having healthy
Hmm.
relationships. If you have a healthy relationship, everything else will work better. We will
Yeah.
feel motivated, encouraged to do anything.
I mean, I think that's the key part of even organizations. Like, yeah, personal life for sure. It's like our families, our support systems are so vital to helping us thrive. And it's the same thing in corporations and organizations of any size. I think people sometimes forget that. It'll always come down to the
Mhm.
relationships between coworkers, between managers and employees at all levels. It's about those relationships.
This is great. And well, what motivates you to get up in the morning? It's a simple question, but
What motivates me? Well, I have two young kids, so a lot of times that is the motivation I need because they force me to get up because otherwise I'll either keep yelling or keep crying. um, so a few days a week, I will. This is what I tell people, or this is what I do: is I get up at 5 in the morning to work out, to go to the gym and work out, and I find that sets the day, that sets the tone. Like the days that I work out and get to the gym, I feel a certain energy throughout the day. I feel energized. I'm ready to go. The days I don't, I feel a little sluggish. I feel a little discombobulated, a little disorganized all day. And so for that, like getting up and exercising, I feel like is a
Mhm,
vital part of my day. Is setting a good tone, being active,
mhm,
um, and then going to work. And then making sure that I do everything for my family that I need to do. Like I get all the breakfast ready and get the kids ready for school and get drop them off at school. I like doing that stuff. I like making sure that my family's provided for, everything's packed and ready to go. I like providing for them and feeling like I'm helping them, and I think that's one of my love languages also is acts of service. I like doing things for the people I love. And then I just love doing the work I do because I get to help other people on an ongoing basis. I get to help people either pursue their dreams, achieve their potential, make a change or in their teams or whatever it may be. I love that ability to have an impact, in a real way, both on an individual level as well as a broader level.
it's a beautiful answer, and well, I'm just starting a relationship. I really want this to evolve. I had many attempts, failed attempts, of course, uh, and my for curiosity, my love language is quality time.
Mm,
I really like to stay and talk about my day
mm,
and about everything else. It's really enjoyable, and I think the the power to influence other people motivates me to
yeah.
start my day. It's really good. Um, we talk so much about the social media influencers, but
Mm,
what do they do to influence other people? Just take pictures, dance, well,
yeah.
and what else?
Yeah. Although I will say I do. I mean, I'm like everybody else. I get stuck watching the Instagram reels too. Like it's just so easy to get stuck watching them.
Oh, for sure. It's really addictive.
Yeah.
Of course, I stay some hours looking for memes to share
Yeah.
with my my friends. But well, it's really good to have something else beyond
Right.
the this empty influencing. I mean, just taking pictures with beautiful clothes and the perfect body,
Right.
the perfect face. I think we must, especially me. You are a father, and I work with children in my volunteering.
Hmm.
I think we must give good examples to them. I think I give importance to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I think you probably have more influence than I do, just because I think as a parent, your time of influence is limited as the older they get. Like at the beginning, yeah, they spend all their time with you, but once they start going to school, they have more times. They're spending most of the day with their friends or other kids, and then people who work with them or volunteer with them, they'll spend time with. And so, my days are limited. And my days are numbered in terms of how much I can influence my kids.
Okay. Well, we parents trust us this mission. I know.
Yeah.
Well, and cultivating a high performing culture, let's talk about it, often requires challenging ingrained behaviors and mindset. Can you discuss your approach to helping leaders disrupt traditional cultural norms and foster environments of collaboration,
Hmm.
trust, and accountability?
Yeah, it always comes down to two big questions. I always say three actually. The first one is you have to understand everybody on your team. You have
Oh,
to, again, relationships. You have to know everybody in the culture. You have to know their wants, their
mhm,
needs, their professional goals. Are you meeting their needs for the what if they're working for you? Do they just want to do a good job for the sake of doing a good job? Are they looking to grow their skill sets? What's their motivation? Are they looking to just clock in and clock out? They don't really care. They just want to do the job as it's expected and then peace out because they are just paying for their personal life. That's okay too. Is just knowing what their motivations are. Then the second thing is what does that desired culture look like? That's the big question is what are the behaviors that you want to see in that culture in that team so that you know it's going in the direction you want. And then you got to role model that too, right? You can't expect your team to do something you're not going to do. So an example is integrity. If you want to create a culture of integrity and then you have a team member that is dishonest or lying, but they're a really high performer, are you willing to hold them accountable to that same standard? Because if you don't, you're essentially saying you don't believe in that standard or that's not a really important standard for you for that culture. So it's being honest with yourself, like what behaviors do you want to see in that culture?
mhm.
And then the last question I always ask people is, what are you going to stop tolerating? So what are you willing to, or what are you going to be able to say no to going forward? So if collaboration and teamwork is really important, what are you going to stop tolerating? If there's gossiping, are you going to stop that in some way and address it? But if you let it keep going, then you're essentially saying it's okay. So those are the three big things. It all comes down to that, and then really it's from there. It's just going through behavior through by behavior, team by team, person by person, and seeing where you can really role model that in a way because you set the tone for everybody else.
Oh, for sure. Uh, um, and how do different cultures and historical contexts, in your opinion, shape our understanding of tradition breaking? And
Hmm.
there, you know, mhm,
That's such a good question because I was just before this I was coaching a leader who was trying to figure out how to manage an employee who was asking questions about benefits or asking questions about accommodations. And this leader was really put off by the fact that this person had just started, this employee, they had just started. And so he couldn't even visualize, like, why would this person ask for benefits after just starting? But after some talking, he was coming to the realization that he was putting his own values onto this employee. The way he was brought up as a person and as an employee was that you just put your head down, you work, you
mhm,
don't ask for any benefits or any accommodations. And he was coming to the realization like that's his own thing, that's not how people are probably taught nowadays. He's not that's not how they work, and this person and the employee's getting work done, so it wasn't even an issue. It was just a different value of how they're approaching work. So
yeah,
a lot of it is just gaining that insight and being willing to actually explore that insight about what are my rules for the world and what was I taught to believe and what is actually true and what is possible and what's just a me thing and what's actually necessary for the work that we're doing or the things we're doing.
it's
It's being willing to
absolutely,
challenge that on an
it's
ongoing basis. I think
a really
that's
interesting
the
exercise. I spent
and I think it comes
many
down to
times,
relationships again, as we talked about,
especially
but
after
it
uh,
it's a
my
being willing to
30s, and
explore
I
and being
started
willing
this therapy.
being
I
open
was
to being wrong
exactly 30
about your
years
own
old,
beliefs, which is hard, right? Because there
because
are beliefs, that's how we were
well,
raised.
I
We
don't
think
know
we're right,
why
but it's being
society
willing and open and having the courage
has
to say, what
this
if I'm not right about
fear of
this?
aging,
And
and
what would that
they
mean for
threw
me
us
and for other
this
people?
fear. Oh, you are aging, you are getting old, everything. is old, and I wanted to understand myself. And it's really good because when you start talking to yourself, you start thinking, oh,
Mm,
why did I believe in this
mm,
until this time? And how to rethink my old beliefs, my old traditions, these
mm.
all
Yeah.
the old standards. And well, sometimes we keep what's working, and well, we need to, but many things we need to rethink. And I think relationships run so much better when we open our
Mm,
minds to
mm-hmm,
change. It's really good.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
Mhm. Well, and talking about it, who are the most influential people in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you live in a multicultural area or in a context, it's so important because it's
Okay.
the epitome of different traditions coming against each other, and sometimes yeah, you can create a whole new tradition, which is even cooler, and synthesize all these different beliefs together, which is cool, I think.
Mhm.
The most influential people in my life are, well, number one is my wife. I would say I think she's a good compliment to me because I'm too big of a dreamer sometimes. I often think, why can't we do this? Why not try this? Why not do that? And she's much more logistical and realistic in a way that she's not automatically against what I'm doing. She's just more helping me think through what's if this was possible. What is the way to actually do it? So I think she helps ground me and make me think logically and logistically through that. So I think that's great. Um, who else is really influential in my life? That's a good question. I don't think about that question very often. I would say I have a good friend who I think he's one of the most professional people I know and one of the best networkers that I've ever met. And he's older than me, I think by like 15 years or so. But he's just also very
Oh,
thoughtful and wise about
well, I
lots of
must say
things,
I
and
ask
so
this question
I
to all
appreciate
my
his
guests,
wisdom on certain
and
things and his
it's
experience. And he's
incredible.
also a person
They
that's even with
very few
his
of
experiences
them
and his wisdom, he's not afraid to
say,
ask people
"Oh,
for advice. He's even
it's
asked me for
something
advice on things, so I,
someone
I always
who
appreciate
is
that
not my
he has so
mother or
much
my
wisdom and
father."
thoughtfulness behind what he does.
It's
But he
really
also is willing
funny,
to ask
and
other
you
people
are
of
one
of
of the
any
few
background
people
or
who
age or
says, "Oh,
experience,
it's my
kind of their
wife,"
thoughts and experiences, and
and
listen to hear what they're
it's a
doing.
really interesting question. Well, in a certain way, is family the family you chose to create? Yeah, the others say, "Oh, my father, my mother." I have a very influential person in my life. I
Hmm.
always say my great grandmother. She passed away when I was 15 years old, and it devastated me a lot because I spent a lot of time with her,
Yeah.
and she was a very smart woman. And
Yeah.
well,
That's so funny
she
that
was,
I'm one of the few people that would say
although
that.
smart and fierce, a charming and elegant
Hmm.
person, and I really get inspired by her. My father always tells this to me.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, great.
you remember my grandmother too much.
Mm.
It's really good to have positive influences in our life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, but your
Uh, How
Your
sweet.
answer was cute too. I always look for, like I told you,
Yeah, for
when I
sure.
start any
I
relationship,
will
I
say my
always
parents.
look
I don't want
for
to. If they listen to this, I
someone,
don't want them to
not
think that I forgot
simply
about them. They
these
are really nice.
fairy
I really
tales of,
respect
oh,
them. I
you
really get a
complete
lot
me,
from them. Um,
you are my other
yeah, I
side,
think it's
but
just because we're
well,
just in different
someone
life stages
to
now
trust
that
my dreams and to
they
encourage me, and
they're just
also
not doing what I'm doing.
someone who
So
I
it's
can
hard to
encourage. I
get
think
get
the
inspiration from them.
symbiosis is really important.
Yeah.
And if I find this, oh, I will be really really happy. Well, and what do most people misunderstand about your work?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. Yeah. What do most people misunderstand about my work? Um, I would say that I will give them the answer. I think it's even as a therapist, I think people expect therapists to just give you the answer. As a coach, people expect me. They often will just ask me like, what would you do in this situation? How would you handle this? Or does it sound right if I say this?" And that's not our role as a therapist or a coach. It's not to tell you the answer. It's to help you figure out what the answer is for yourself because you're the expert of your own life, and that's what we believe in the roles that I hold. You're the expert of
Mhm.
your own life, and so I'm here to help facilitate, ask good questions, be a good sounding board, help you make sure that it's the right answer for you. But at the end of the day, we're not you.
Mm.
We're not in your team. We're not in your
Well,
family. So
yeah,
there's no
I'm
possible
thinking
way for
about
us to
all
know
the
what you're going to
therapy
say is
sessions
the
I
right way to
had,
say
and
it, or if
this
what you're going to
it
do is the
blew
right
my
thing to
mind too.
do.
I wanted
We can help
answers,
you think through
and
it and be a good sounding
I
board and tell
finished
you what
each
best
session
practices or
with
what
my
other
head.
people have done in similar situations. But at the end of the day,
Oh,
you're the expert of
completely
your own
confused.
life.
I
And
I was
so
like,
only you can
oh,
decide at the end of the
I
day
don't know
what
the
is the
answer.
right choice
They
for you.
always asked me
And so I'm just here to
something,
help
and I
facilitate you
spent
making that decision.
the whole week, the whole month thinking about it. It's really interesting, and now I understand, and I think it's really
Hmm.
helpful to have questions instead of answers. It it
Yeah.
really encourages us to change. We have a first answer, and then we think, oh no, it's not like this. We can see if
Yeah.
we can change the answer through time or not. It's it's our power. It's it's really interesting. um, so looking ahead, what are your
Hmm.
aspirations for the future of leadership development and organizational effectiveness? And how do you envision your role evolving to address emerging
Yeah.
challenges and opportunities?
That's right. That's right. That's the power of good questions. Hmm. What a big question. I will say this. My aspiration is that somehow I win the
Mhm.
lottery personally and just become rich somehow. That would be great. In terms of leadership, I think, or I'm hopeful, and this is why I work doing this, is that organizations find a way to become more human centric in a way where they are valuing these relationships and balancing that with good results, because every company needs to make money in order to be a company, otherwise it's just really a hobby at that point. So you need to make money, you need to create a product, you need to do good if you're a nonprofit or mission driven, and there's a way to do that while still having happy people, engaged people, and respecting people's humanness. And so I'm hopeful, and I'm working towards that. In the work that I do, is creating that balance of
Mhm.
happy people and good results. And so I'm hopeful that leaders will continue to get in that way, especially as the time goes on and more younger people are getting into leadership
Well,
positions. This younger
it's really
generation really
interesting
cares a
to
lot more
say
about that work life balance and
human-centric
happy people.
organizations because
And I
when
think they're going to have to learn also how to balance
I
those good
do it
results that
with
you need to
all my
get
heart
in terms of
and
business.
imperfection
But
because
I'm hopeful, and
art
I'm
is
and
not
I'm
supposed
glad that
to
they're
be
having that
perfect.
conversation
It's
about how
but
do we also have happy
at the end
people,
of the day,
because I
it's
think that's going to be an
human.
important part.
Uh,
How do you
it's
have a
something
happy
human-centric.
workforce
Then
that's engaged and
I want to
feels
show I
joy in
create
what they do, to a
something
degree, to the
for
degree that they want to have
humans,
joy in the work that they
not
do.
to a corporation. A corporation is made by humans. It's really interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, it's good to as an inspiration as the mood board
Mm.
process because we need some references before starting the design work.
Mm.
But
Love that.
the 100% AI centered design, to me it looks boring. It looks something really artificial. And
Yeah.
in many types of visual identity, I don't know. It shows. It doesn't show what the company about.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
think the real identity of the company, the brand, it doesn't sound nice. Well, I worked just a
Yeah.
few months ago to
Yeah.
uh, a
Yeah. I love
non-profit
that mindset.
organization
I'm
about the
wondering,
environment, and
what do you
the
think about
logo,
the increased
I
use of
know I shouldn't
AI
say
with
it, but
in terms of
the
graphic
logo,
design?
all the identity disturbed me because it was something poor. I wanted to change, but I
Hmm.
just needed to help them with templates. And well, the breaking traditions, let's continue our theme. Breaking traditions is often involving challenging established norms and
Mm.
paradigms. We talked
Yeah.
about it all the all episode long. And can you share an example of a time you encouraged someone to challenge traditional thinking or practice in their life, in their organization, and what impact did this have on their approach and outcome?
Mm. Hmm.
Mhm,
Mm. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. That's so
mhm,
interesting. I love that idea of that
mhm,
perfectly imperfect. Hmm. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. The best example, I guess, is when I was doing learning and development, and then I moved into leadership and organizational development. So I was at a nonprofit, and we were all of
Mm.
our trainings were in person, and the ones that were online were um, the old school like e-learning where you're just like you have slide after slide and somebody's just kind of narrating that slide to you. So very boring. So nobody liked it. Nobody got value out of it. And I had the idea, not by myself. Like I was looking at research and I was like, why don't we start changing our trainings to be hybrid? So there's a mix of video, there's a mix of pre-work that they do, and then the live session can be practice or case studies,
Different
and really go
people
through it
with
and really
first.
get people practicing and doing stuff. And
It's
there was
really
pushback because there was like a lot of
it
how are you going to get
was
them to do the pre-work
really
beforehand?
challenging experience to me.
How are you
I
going to
started
all these kind
I
of
was
logistical
starting
things that we needed to
to
solve for how you're going to assign it.
do the my
And so I went
outdoors
back and
life,
I thought about it some more and I
and
tried
then
to work to figure out how
it
to
came,
solve it.
and I
And
needed
so
to
we tried it a
uh,
few we I was
come
able to
back
eventually
to
persuade my boss
all
to
the
let's try it a few
video
times and see how it
video
goes.
life. And
And
nowadays,
I was able to, and we were able
well,
to do it to some degree. It was
I
okay.
think I learned
But
it
eventually what
to
happened after that was
do the
COVID.
perfect
And suddenly we
balance
went
between
into
the
COVID. And
outdoors
so
and
everything
indoors
had to
life.
be
And
suddenly
well,
shifted.
as I
So
said
the
in
impact of
in the
that really
first
was that
episode of
by
this
the time
season,
COVID came
I
about,
think
we were
this is more
actually
than
ahead
a
of the
screen.
game in terms
To
of
me nowadays,
we
is
had already
a
tested
window
out this
to
kind of
different
concept.
parts of the
We
world,
knew what went wrong, what
and
could be
I can
improved, and we were
see
able to pivot
literally
much
the
more quickly
world
on
from my
doing
bedroom.
that hybrid approach and
Oh well,
online
this
at the
is
same
not my
time.
bedroom,
And
but
so
it's
it was a really good
just
pivot, and it was really
a
it
way
set us up for kind
of
of
looking.
that need to
uh,
change how we were
yeah,
doing
the
things
my real bedroom
when the
has
pandemic
a
came
big
around.
window to a house with I don't know, 4 or 5 cats, and every time I look at the window, I just see a cat. Meow. But this window
Yeah.
is fundamental to learn about new cultures, to challenge my traditions, and even to create more and more new traditions.
Hmm.
uh, well, our conversation is great, but the time is ending, and we have just a few more questions before finishing it all. And the first question is, what's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it? Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Sorry, all I have is the wall behind me. Hmm. Sure. My biggest failure is it's hard to it's hard to choose. I have lots of failures. I think probably I'll just name a couple of them just because I can't quantify. But I one is I when I was out of college before I went to grad school, I was working at a psych hospital, and I got fired from the psych hospital because I
Mm-hmm.
got angry. I got burned out, and I swore at a couple of the clients. And I think it was just, the heat of the moment. I was getting burned out because I had been going through a lot of personal stuff. So like I was not in a good headspace anyway. So it was 100% my fault. I won't blame anybody else for that. But it was just a real tough situation for me because I was like, I felt lost. I didn't know what to do, and I think from there it was good observation for me of
Mm-hmm.
how important it is to manage my emotions even when I don't feel right, because it's not fair to other people for me to lash out at them out of things that they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't deserve that, and so it was totally my fault. So I really learned, like, oh man, no matter how bad my emotions are, I need to figure out how to manage it better. I can't be lashing out at other people for any reason, right? And another real
Oh,
big failure I made
well, I wrote
was
about it yesterday
um,
to my
it was
blog
actually about being
post,
burned out too. But I was burned out, and I
and
I was
I
just
I said
I had this really
graphic
difficult
design is
client
not
when I was a
my
therapist. I was
first
working at a
career.
residential
Before
treatment
this,
center with
I was
adolescents,
I was
and
supposed to
I
be a
had
lawyer.
a
I
really
studied
difficult
law,
client, and I was
and
really
I
struggling,
had
and I
to work
just felt like
for
a failure. And
government
I
for
kept
a few
looking at,
months,
like, I would, even on the
and
weekends, I would read updates about how he was
well,
doing,
I
and he
had
would be doing
I had
poorly, and
to
I would feel
organize
really
papers and
responsible
documents,
for it, and
and
it
I
would ruin my
started looking
weekend.
at the people
And so
who worked there
I was just
for a
letting it
long
really
time,
impact kind of my
and I was
day to
thinking,
day
what
work,
am
my
I
personal
doing
life, I
here?
should say. And so I
I
was really, and
I looked
it burned me out
at the
even more. It
pile
made
of
me even more stressed out to even go
processes,
back to the work. And so that's why
lawsuits,
I left the work, is because I
everything,
got burned out.
and I
But
and
I
I
really
started
learned
thinking
there
about it,
how important
but
it is to have that work life
and
balance and not
then
let
I
that
just
the stuff that I'm doing at work
I just
impact my
continued
personal life. And so setting up
until
boundaries, whatever that may be
reaching
for
my edge.
anybody, but
I was
for me the
really
boundary was making sure I
wanting
didn't
my
look at
creative
work stuff on the
feel
weekends or in
back.
my personal life.
I always
Um,
loved
so
to
yeah,
make
just
some
learning how to set
music,
good
to
boundaries for
draw,
myself. I think that's
and
where I really learned that.
well, in this career, I I chose. I wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything of it. I just needed to follow rules and laws, and it was a great mistake. But uh, only
Hmm.
maturity made me look behind and see. I
Mm-hmm.
made this mistake, maybe in thinking, I wrote this in the article. I would be an important person. I would overcome the bullying years I suffered at school. Maybe thinking
Hmm.
I would make justice for my mom because she was a housewife, not by
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
option, but she made this contract with my father, and she didn't. In a certain moment of her life, she didn't love it at all, and she projected her
Hmm. Hmm.
frustration into my sister and me. Oh, please, be
Yeah.
an important person. You make some money. You don't need to be a housewife like me. And well, I just thought, I'm not doing this for me. I was doing this for her.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, me too. uh, I think we I learned a lot with my mistakes, and well, I don't regret anymore. I had many regrets,
Hmm.
but I don't regret anymore. Without these mistakes, I wouldn't have this conscience. I wouldn't be conscious about what I
Hmm.
want in my life.
Yeah.
And well, what are three unique skills that helped you become successful?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, yeah. That's I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like those the mistakes I made are really a good important part of my story. Like I wouldn't be who I am without those mistakes. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sure.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Cool journey. 3 unique skills. I'm really good at learning stuff, so I can pick things up pretty quickly. And not only can I pick them up really quickly, I can then explain it to somebody else in a way that they understand. I can break it down so that somebody else can understand it. So if it's complex computer skills, complex topic, I can break it down in a way that makes it
music
understandable for other
is really
people.
powerful.
So that's
I'm
one
a singer,
skill.
not famous.
I think
I
my
sing
love of music is a
formally,
skill
and
because I think
well, I really
it's I love
enjoy
music in a way
music
that I
from many
love
parts
music
of the
from all
world.
around the world as
Well,
well.
as you
So it
know,
helps me connect
Brazilian
with other
music,
people quickly, helps me
that
connect with other
there is
cultures
the
quickly.
old music,
And then
samba
when I
and
play
bossa
music,
nova.
I think most
The
people almost everybody loves
most
music in a way, right? So
interesting
it
parts,
helps me
I
connect
think,
with them. So when
and
I'm
the
playing it and I
modern
play
one,
something that they
I don't
recognize
like
from their
that
own culture, if
much.
they're not from
But
a generally white
yeah,
culture in the
the
U.S., if
lyrics
they're from
are
another
really
culture,
poor.
and then suddenly they hear me playing it,
But
it's a
I
really cool way
encourage
to
people
connect with
to
other
know
people. So I
it's
think
another.
that love of music
They
is
are
a
in
cool skill that I
Portuguese,
have.
and it's another
And then I love
language.
other
It's not like
lots of different
Spanish.
varieties of music as well. Um,
But
yeah, I think those are the
it's
biggest things that
really
help me be successful is
good
that
to
and the being willing to
know
always question why are
other
we doing things the
cultures
way we're
through
doing it.
music.
I
I
think that
agree with
constant
you.
questioning helps
And
me
I'm really
always
happy
search out new ways of
when
doing
I
things,
hear
learn new ways of doing
people
things, and
saying
being willing
that
to
they are
challenge
open-minded
the
to
ways we're
listen
doing
to
things
music
currently.
from other parts of the world. I'm from my favorite style is rock. I'm and
Yeah,
uh, it's really different. There are rock from many parts of the world, and it's really different to
nice.
hear European rock and well, even Asian, and
Mm.
African. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
completely different, but it's a great exercise.
yep.
um, and in closing, what advice would you offer to aspiring nonprofit leaders? I think to all leaders, not only nonprofit, who may
Yep.
be hesitant to
Yeah.
break away from tradition
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
chart new paths in their organizations. And how can they harness the power of tradition breaking to drive meaningful change and creating lasting impact
Yep.
in their communities?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love seeing the different interpretations of the same genre. Mhm.
Oh, it was about tradition
I would
breaking.
My biggest piece of
I
advice
just
is
a
if
second.
you want to
I
really break
listen.
tradition, if you
Okay,
want to pursue
how
that
can they harness
world
the
of
power of tradition
trying new
breaking to
paths,
drive meaningful
you're
change
going to have to
and
get used to
creating
people pushing back
lasting impact
against
in
you
their
all the time.
communities?
There's no other way around it. People don't like change in general. Nobody really likes change. You just have to get used to it. You're always going to come against that, and you always have to be willing to explain yourself and talk about it and share the vision and get people on your side and persuade. And it will never end. You'll always, if you really want to break tradition, you always have to constantly be willing to question it and then let other people question you. I will say, and I will say, the more you let people question you, the more they'll trust you. The more you allow that ability for them to push back, the more you allow them to resist, the more they'll trust you because they know that you'll listen to them and that you'll hear them out, and they won't need to feel the desire to push back so much. So I would say get comfortable with that idea forever. Is that you're always going to be people will always be pushing back. And sorry, I forgot the second part of your question because I didn't answer for that too.
Oh, this is a great last closing word, great last advice. And well, thank you very much for giving your time.
Yeah. So
There is a bonus
I
question.
think the question my answer was because
dkLa's
I knew the answer right away
doors
is
are always open to you.
nothing can
Would you
really
come back if you
not
could?
you can't make a great impact without making a change in some way. Keeping things the way they
Oh,
are
that's great to
won't help
hear.
you.
And
You know,
well,
that's why we're in the
I
situation
wish
we're
you
in right now. Like any
a
solution you
bright
have
path
to
and
solve a problem in your
really
community, that's a change to the
successful
system,
life with your
and you have to be
family.
willing to fight for that change forever and ever.
It's really
It's the
important
reason why
to
freezers
think
were
about
invented, is because
relationships. It's
they needed
That's
to create
what
a way
we
to
learned in
store
this
food
episode.
in the long term. So you need to
To
change
break
the way that people
traditions.
even stored food for the long term. Every big invention that we have is about changing the system in some way. And so you have to be willing for people, you have to be willing to let
Okay,
people question you all the time.
nice.
But by making that change, you can have huge
Uh,
impact by being willing to look at the future and being willing to say, we're not going to do things the way we've always done it, but move forward into the future. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. This is a great conversation. Love learning about you and talking about this.